views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, good evening. Welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to writers and editors and filmmakers and photographers, anybody who puts stuff out in the Bronx, so you can get an idea what you're seeing, what you're reading, what you're hearing about. And this evening we are going to talk about a thorny issue, especially in the East Bronx, and that is the whole notion of the e-scooters that seem to be everywhere. And also in the second part of our show, we have a wonderful Bronx artist. As you may know, I've been around for a long time. I had never seen this artist's work, and it's extraordinary, and you're going to love it. So we'll do that in our second segment. Our first segment, though, is with an old friend. He's not that old. It's Griffin Kelly, who had been an intern at City Limits. The internship just ended. He's a student at the CUNY Craig Newmark School of Journalism, and he's still writing. He will not stop, I'm sure, and that's what he does. Nice to have you with us again, Griffin.
Oh, thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
So you wrote this article about the e-scooters, and you and I did have some interaction about what really the attitude of people is toward it, how useful it is. I'll just give a little background. Everybody in the city of New York, and in particular in the borough of the Bronx, is looking for alternative ways to expand our transportation opportunities. One of the big issues in parts of the Bronx, including the East Bronx, are transportation deserts, where access to various forms of public transit not quite available. And so e-scooters have been proposed. In fact, I've already started in the middle of August. The DOT launched the first phase of its long-awaited e-scooter pilot program in the East Bronx. So they're let's see, where are they? Eastchester, Cobb City, and Morris Park. There's you can see the map on the northern part of the East Bronx. Phase 2 should start sometime this fall or early 2022 in the southern part of the East Bronx. Maybe I'll just ask in general, what were the issues, and then we'll lay out how it's going.
Well, I think some of the main concerns, I guess the naysayers would have is that people were unsure about how they're kind of going to be regulated. Like, where do you leave them? You're supposed to leave them in these designated areas, but those might fill up, and then people just start leaving them anywhere because they eventually get collected by the companies, who provide them.
Here's proof. These are photos that our producer Rebecca Hemick took of her own neighborhood of these scooters being left just everywhere. It's like, hello, here they are.
And it might not be the worst thing in certain places, but you don't want these scooters blocking, crosswalks, roadways, or maybe ramps that are very necessary for people with physical disabilities.
Entranceways to stores,
Yeah.
commerce. You certainly don't want to interrupt that. So that's a negative. Let's go back to the positive. People who are interested in bike riding and other alternative forms of transportation are going to say, well, wait a minute. We've got to do something. These are convenient. Just about everybody can use one. It's even more simple, I think, than riding a bicycle. So there's that side of it.
hmm Yeah, I mean, some people, like you even said before, some people tend to refer to this area as a transportation desert, which it definitely can be, or it's just very complicated. Like you might need to walk a few blocks, take a bus, walk another few blocks to get to your train station or your subway stop. Whereas with this, you hop on your scooter, you go right to the subway stop, and there you go, you're good.
This opens up or has the whole notion of it, the access to mopeds, the bicycles with little motors on them.
hmm
And the pandemic, I think, helped to bring it on because people were looking for alternatives to using mass transit. They said, well, I got to get somewhere. I'm not riding the trains or the buses. It doesn't feel secure to me. So I'm going to get some other form. The problem, which I can see and I've seen everywhere, is they're all over the place. They don't seem to be regulated. You see people riding electric vehicles on the sidewalks. Uh, they zip around. I'm a bicycle rider, so I know
Hmm.
what it's like to be on an alternative vehicle in the street. And you're doing your best to follow traffic patterns and regulations. The folks riding these things don't. I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah, I think the issue, sometimes comes from that. Let's say there's a problem going on in a community, something illegal might be happening. You know who to call. You call 911 or the cops or somebody like that. When you have an issue with these scooters, you can call the companies that are providing them, but it's like now I need to look up this new phone number and learn how to navigate this process of complaining about where are these scooters being parked and things like that,
And
or
and
how
and by
riders
the
are.
way if somebody goes zipping by on the street, on the sidewalk with, a moped or something, uh, you he's gone, he or she, of course,
Hmm.
is gone, and what are you gonna do? "Oh, I just saw one?" I mean,
Hmm. I mean, it. I feel like I was getting so many people from both sides of the aisle of like you say, there are people who are just like they're reckless riders, they park them everywhere. We don't know how to control this, but then there are other people who are really for it, saying like this is going to help everybody get around. It's going to be fun. It's going to make people want to come to the community so they could ride these scooters around because this is the only place in the city right now that has these services.
yes, that is true that, the East Bronx was selected, for better or for worse, to be first, and, as I mentioned, but let's be clear, phase 2
Hmm.
is, Throgs Neck, Soundview, and Castle Hill. I could see, just for example, they put the ferry at Ferry Point Park, and there isn't really a lot of mass transit to get there.
Hmm.
It becomes much more useful. Somebody will just, if they don't live too far, they can get on a scooter, they can get to the ferry. That's a good thing. To me, and I will make a semi-political statement. Mayor De Blasio has, gotten a lot of criticism over the years of not being very detailed, of having good plans or interesting plans, but not being able to put them out with regulation. Seems to me, before this was laid out, this should all have been thought of, discussed with community boards and laid it all out.
Yeah, I
Your
think this,
thoughts about that? You don't have
I
to be political, but just
yeah.
that maybe we need more regulation.
I mean, the one thing that I was thinking about that, this really highlights is that now the city is working with these private companies to help alleviate their transportation problems. And I think it, maybe sheds a light on how the city's transportation itself may not be the best, which, of course, people always have complaints about the buses and the subways and things like that. That now we kind of almost need to depend on these private companies to help us pick up the slack in some areas.
Yes, I'm always interested in levels of government that have input or control. This to me is where a borough president's office could come in. But we're going to have a new borough president beginning January 1st. But it seems to me, before you come in my borough, we like the idea of these things, but how are we going to format it so that our communities accept it and like it, and it's productive? I don't want to reveal a name because it's not my business to do, but I know that someone who won one of the primaries for city council was hit by a moped on Jerome Avenue, and it has been laid up and was injured. I made the comment that, well, now you have a clue as to some of the problems with alternative forms of education, of transportation.
Hmm.
I also want to mention in your article, they talked about new protected bike lanes for White Plains Road and Bronxdale Avenue, and shared bike lanes along East 233rd and East Chester Road. As I said, I'm a bike rider. There's no consistency to these plans. And worst of all, there are many communities that really don't want them.
Hmm.
And I'm just not sure how to resolve that, because bicycle riders want them. If we're going to create bigger forms of transportation or expanded forms, we're going to need them. On the other hand, if communities don't want them, it's a problem.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it brings up this bigger issue. Sometimes DOT likes to set up all these ideas for new bike lanes coming in, and it's a matter of time. Sometimes it takes them a really long time to put these bike lanes in, or even get anywhere near putting them in. Um, and then it could also be speaking to a point of, is there some gentrification going on with these new bike lanes coming? Is there going to be more market rate housing coming in? Are there going to be more expensive businesses and restaurants and things like that? So they're, not always a telltale sign, but people get a little worried about them.
Yeah, that they lead to something else, and
Hmm.
again, that is a visionary question to me. That somebody's got to say, this is how we're going to develop our communities, and each community board. I mean, as you might imagine, I'm familiar with many of them in the Bronx. Each one of them has their own point of view. Some are really in favor of these things and think we really need it. Some oppose the plans. I mean, we're talking about the East Bronx. The bike lanes on Morris Park were vehemently opposed by the community. The one on Broadway in the West Bronx, in the Northwest Bronx, was partially objected to. I'm there often, as a matter of fact. I don't know that it was implemented real smartly in certain areas. But anyway, so Griffin, what's next for you? Now, you will be writing more for City Limits. If you're asking me, they should let you write a lot for them. But that's not.
I
So
mean, that's the
where
plan
are
right
you at
now.
now? You started school again. CUNY just started, right?
I did, yes. We actually just started our semester. I'm going to be there in a couple hours. We're doing in-person classes, which is a new thing for me. I came in, this semester. That
Oh, during
was,
the pandemic. Wow.
yeah, everybody just has only had online classes.
Wow.
Um, so
And
I'm
now,
taking a few.
not to change
Yep.
subjects, but are all your classes online? Are
No,
you
no, they're
sending all
actually
your
in person
classes
now.
in person?
They're in person now.
Wow.
Yeah,
All right.
it's
Well,
pretty cool.
presumably you'll stay safe. I guess it's a little easier for colleges because the students are not as young as in grade schools, where the risk for virus is much stronger.
Yeah, and
Um,
this is a
and,
very
and
particular school with a small student body, like 80 students in my class.
Right, right, right. All right. Griffin Kelly, former intern with City Limits. We hope to see your byline even more in City Limits and anywhere, because you're a very good writer. You're very thoughtful, and we always love having you on the Bronx Buzz. We assume you'll come back at some point.
Yes, sir. Whenever you want me, I'll be here.
Great. Okay. Griffin Kelly, what a pleasure to have him. Take a short break. When we come back, you are going to enjoy this artist. Don't go away.
If you're struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit, or call toll-free at 833-511-0311. That's 833-511-0311.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scales of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from Bronx.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. As I said at the top of the show, I'm very excited about this particular artist coming on. He does extraordinary work. I had not seen it before, and so we're going to enjoy it for the first time together. Let's say good evening to Marcus Jansen. Nice to have you with us, Marcus.
Thanks for having me, Gary. Thanks for having me.
But let's just talk about you a little bit. You are a veteran. We're proud of that, and we thank you, of course, for your service. Just talk to me a little bit about where you grew up and how you became an artist. What inspires your art? Let's start there.
Yeah, my roots are in the Bronx. My grandparents migrated to the Bronx from Jamaica in 1954. Subsequently, my mother was raised there, and I was born while we were living on Boynton and Story Avenue in the Bronx in Soundview. So my roots are there, but my life really took a completely different direction. I started school in Queens, where I had my first exhibition, actually at the Lever House in Manhattan a long time ago, and then went overseas to Germany, where I went to school and actually graduated from there while coming back on summer vacation. So I had my background is extremely complex, and that's also in the end what led me to the art. And the military was a big part of that, because it was around that time also when I was diagnosed after my deployment to the Gulf War. That I was diagnosed with PTSD, and that's sort of what led me to becoming, getting more involved in the arts.
And you talk about the PTSD artwork, and you creating is therapeutic. I mean, it's almost like medicine, right? And I'm guessing, but especially and people are going to look at it in a second. This work in particular helps you express, helps you define, helps you feel better.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for me, it was a lifesaver, I would even say. I mean, a lot of vets are now sort of getting involved, in art therapy programs and so forth. Back then, my war was 30 years ago. I was in the Gulf War, and I came back with PTSD, and I was involved in Gulf therapy programs. And these programs were actually designed for vets to do exactly that, which is, to express. I just happened to have a talent in art. I went to art school before that. And so for me, it was just right on the money, right? So I was able to really find my artistic talent there again, and even saw it as a possibility to really do as a profession later on, which is then what I did.
Let's put pictures up, and we can continue to talk while we look at them. Our producer Rebecca has some samples. I mean, this, you talk about what you have been through in the Gulf War and the other things. You want to just talk about this? It just has. I wish I could find the words. Maybe that's the beauty of artwork.
Well, it's good if you can't, because I mean that's the whole thing about I always say great art should be familiar but out of touch, right? It's something that you kind of feel familiar with, but something that you can't really explain in words. And that's precisely what I try to do with the work. That particular work you just showed is Behind Walls 3, and actually appeared in the New York Times last year. So it was a series of works that I did behind walls, and it really kind of comments on this sort of generation that we're in with these dividing walls that keep on popping up, whether it's psychological or physical, right? Or whether it's and it can really be anywhere, whether it's the border here in the United States, or whether it's the East German wall separating East Germany and West Germany, or whether it's the wall right now that we're trying to keep people or get people safe from in Afghanistan.
Let's show the next one. And I want to ask you, I'm always interested in an artist's muse and in what an artist is thinking about. Do you, look at this, do you plan it out, or do you kind of look at it and then say, well, I'll put this here, I'll put this there?
No, there's no planning at all. There are no preconceived notions with my work. They really happen and occur out of the process itself.
And do you want to talk about that one just for a moment?
Yeah, this was also a series. This is a series I did actually while at my studio in the Bronx. I have two studios, as I said before, Gary. One is in Florida and one is in the Bronx. And much of that is also because I do different production in different places, right? With the different influences depending on where you are and the things that inspire you. And a lot of it is, I think the things that I'm doing in the Bronx is also around gentrification, the changing of the South Bronx right now also, which has, of course, always been sort of a revolving door. But that's been a subject of mine, and how that happens and how people are often displaced during those.
Let's put up another picture while we keep talking. But one of the real values of this are the many emotions that come through, are the many pictures. This is tragic and applicable, unfortunately, as recent as as today. You want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, that one is power and people, right? And this sort of topic of power and how power is often abused, and a topic that we deal with in almost all of our society these days, right? Whether it's psychological or actual power being acted out on people. And that was a series that I did last year, also during COVID, by the way.
And you've been celebrated and recognized and shown in many high-profile places. Congratulations. Here's a technical question, and I'm sorry to ask it. Let's put up another one. But while I ask it, how do you know when you're done? In other words, you're so free form.
Oh, I never know when I'm done.
At some point, you look at it. You probably look at that one and say, I probably could add something else.
Oh yeah, I think an artist is done when he says he's done, or she says he's done, right? So there is no finish to a painting, except that if there's any finish or any completion to a painting, it's when the viewer looks at it. I mean, that's been always my position.
That last one that we saw, you have a series of them of people, illustrated in artwork without faces. There are many ways to interpret that. Do you have a thought that you want to share about why that is? What your vision of these people is that you decided to make them, without a face?
Yeah, initially I was exploring power, anonymity, and secrecy. And by doing so, I started doing these faceless paintings. It was almost 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago. And they sort of emerged into these faceless characters of power figures. The one that you just showed, of course, could be reminiscence of some founding father of some sort or something,
Right.
or some colonialist of some sort. But these are individuals that we really are not too familiar with. And
yet they control lives and they control life and they make big decisions. I got to tell you, the way we introduce this segment, let's put up another one because I want to make sure to get them all up there. Here's another sample of it. The way we introduce this segment as being an outgrowth of your experiences, with the military, coming home with PTSD. You could see why these are therapeutic, why creating these images would be helpful to you, and say, this is the frustration, this is the inner anger, frankly, that I feel.
Yeah, frustration, anger, or simply being critical about the world that we're living in today. I think that's fundamental, and highlighting also the humanity and these human concerns that these figures are really in paradox with.
Mm-hmm. Do you is it purely paint? Do you use a different medium, or all these
yes.
literally with paintbrushes?
Yeah, mostly paint. Sometimes there's a mixed media, but mostly all enamels, and all sticks sometimes, but generally around all base paints.
Yeah, let's put up another one. I'm going to tell you something. Here's another one. Again, let's talk about power, control. People ask me all the time, how do you get ideas, let's say, for shows that we do? And I say, I open up my window and I look outside, and then I find ways to represent whatever that is, whether it's reading the news or learning about people. I get the sense that your work is created and inspired in a similar way. You watch TV, you watch the news, you see what's going on down your block, right? Do I get that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would consider my work as contemporary in nature, simply because most of the topics and subject matters are drawn out of current events or current things that have to do with again, humanity and how things are, in what direction things are going, and so forth. So yeah, I draw them directly from, whether it's from news or from actual happenings or from personal experiences.
How prolific are you? Do you do something? Do you work every day? Do you are these? Do you finish them? You just dash them off, or do you take a lot of time with them?
Well, I work every day. I'm a professional painter for 30 years.
Let's put up the last one, and then we're going to talk about an upcoming show so everybody can see it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a professional painter for 30 years now. I've raised a family of 4 with it, and I've been obviously very successful in the last, I would say maybe 10 years or so. So I've just been very fortunate. It's been a lot of work as an artist, as a painter. It's a very difficult field, but I think I've always believed if you have a passion for something that also has a purpose of some sort, you can go pretty far with it. And I've had a great team and great people behind me.
Coming up September 10th through 12th is a show, a new exhibit. Why don't you tell us all about it? Let's get Bronx people to it. It's not in the Bronx.
I'm very excited. First of all, I'm excited because, like I said, it's our 20th anniversary between Richard Beaver's Gallery in Brooklyn and myself. Richard Beaver's Gallery in Brooklyn is also representing me at booth T2, which is Tango 2. So if you get to come out, it's at the futurefairs.com. And this is a fairly new art fair here in New York City. But it's making a lot of waves. It's you'll see written about it. I think the New York Times had a piece mentioned something just the other day. We're really excited. We're going to have 6 large pieces, and futurefairs.com. Love for everybody to come out.
Right. But by the way, how large in general are the pieces that we just looked at? In real life?
The ones you looked
on the
at
screen, they're this big.
Yeah. Well, they're around. I would say around 5 to 6 feet, and the very largest one is more like 9 feet. Wow. So these are large paintings.
I obviously interview Bronx people every week, and the words that I hear from you are this is what the Bronx is about. People with passion, people with anger, people feeling powerless, trying to fight back. How do we find you on the web? Let's talk about your social media, and then we'll thank you for your passion and your work.
Oh, thank you, Harry. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. You can find me on marcusjansen.com. That's MarcusJasen.com. And my social media on IG is also Marcus_Jansen.com. And come see me and follow what we're doing. We're doing a lot of things. We have another opening in Paris, opening up with Alman Riche, also at the same time in Paris. So there's a lot going on.
You are expressing, when you go across the world, in my mind, you're expressing who we are in the Bronx, and I couldn't appreciate it more. And again, your passion comes shining through. Marcus Jansen, a pleasure to meet you, a pleasure to look at your artwork. We're now going to follow you all the time, and certainly if you have a new show or you have other stuff you want to present to the people of the Bronx, we're not going anywhere. We'd love to have you.
Sounds good.
Great.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Marcus Jansen, a wonderful Bronx artist. That studio is right there in the South Bronx. And so we thank him for his time. Also, thanks to our buddy Griffin Kelly talking about e-scooters in the Bronx. And you know what's going to happen? We'll be back next week with more. Good night.